Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another Kubestronaut check-in session. My name is Mumshad Manambeth, and I'll be your host for today. This is check-in session 16 of the year, the beginning of the year. We started the Kubestronaut cohorts, and we have about 4 cohorts that are running in parallel right now. And this is probably one of the last sessions of the year. Hopefully, we'll have one more before the end of the year. But we've made a lot of progress throughout the year, and today I have a special guest who will be who's here in the backstage, who I'll bring in a few minutes, who'll help you answer all of your questions about education in general, Linux Foundations education, as well as the future. So stay tuned in. If you're here, drop a message in the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from. And yeah, let's get kicking. So just share my presentation here. All right, so what we're going to do today is one, I'm going to, as usual, celebrate all the winners, everyone who's who we've launched to the Kubestronaut orbit the past few weeks. We also hit a big milestone last week. I'll talk a little bit about that. And I have some updates about new course launches. We'll do a quick check-in on the leaderboard, and I'll bring my guest in, and then we can have the chat. So yeah, let us know where you're from. We have Kishan Borad. Hello, Kishan. We have Ganesh from Qatar. We have is that Bao? And then we have Hassan Ali. We have Pradeep Rajwar from India. We have Vinay Bajaj from Bangalore. So yeah, welcome everyone, and do drop in your message here. And if you have any questions throughout the session, do drop them in the chat, and we'll pick them up towards the end of the session. All right, so to begin with, congratulations to all the recent Kubernetes rock stars. So we have Sandesh Pawar, who is a DevOps engineer, cloud native and Kubernetes specialist. He's recently done his KCNA. So congratulations to Sandesh. We have Osama Nairi, who is a solutions engineer, who's recently done his CKA. We have Kailash Kumar, who is an SRE. Also recently done his CKAD. We have Chamara, who's recently completed all the 5 Kubernetes certifications and have become a Kubestronaut. So congratulations to Chamara. We have Amit, who's recently completed the CKAD certification, who's an MLOps engineer. We have Kerabdi Tanaya, who's recently completed the CKA. We have Chandrasekhar, who has recently become India's 239th and the world's 2000th Kubestronaut. So congratulations to Chandrasekhar. We have Vladimir, who's a cloud security expert at Deutsche Telekom. He's recently completed his CKS certification. Idris, who's also become a Kubestronaut. So congratulations to Idris. We have Iman Omar, who's recently also completed his Kubestronaut journey. So congratulations to Iman. We have Aslam, who's also recently completed all the 5 Kubernetes certifications. Fabio, who's also become a Kubestronaut. And we have Alessio, who's recently completed his golden Kubestronaut path. So congratulations to all those who have completed their Kubestronaut and golden Kubestronaut journeys. A few others who have done completed some of the other certifications. So you have the LFCS Linux, the LFCS certification, the certified sysadmin certification. So congratulations to Vivek on that. We have Wissam, who's done the CNPA certification, Tal, and Labesh, who's recently done their LFCS and Cilium certification, respectively. Wissam, who's recently completed his Prometheus certification. Alexandre, who's done the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. So we have a couple of AWS certified engineers as well. Peter, who's done the AWS solutions architect. Sai, and Umair, who's also completed their AWS certifications. So congratulations to everyone. Jeruat, who's recently done the Cilium certification. Ihor, who's completed the Backstage Associate Exam certification. So congratulations to everyone who's completed all of the other certifications. We also had recently had our 1 million lab users milestone. So a little bit of background on this. So a couple of years back, in about 2022, we set a goal for ourselves in enabling or educating 1 million users through our labs. So you typically have these moonshot goals for businesses, which are basically to hit a big setting a big goal for yourselves and trying to hit that, a big, hairy, ambitious goals, as they call it. And we had a lot of as KodeKloud grew the past couple of years, we had a lot of these metrics that we were tracking. So we had the number of leads that we get, the number of signups, users who sign up on the platform, people who watch a course, things like that. But we wanted to pick something, a metric that was really that made really sense for us as a learning platform. And our core advantage, as you probably know, are our labs and the learn by doing side of things. And so we set a goal for ourselves. We said that, getting views on YouTube or other channels are easy. Getting users to come to our platform is also comparatively easy. Get them to sign up and take a course, again, probably easy. But the real hard part is getting someone to actually go through a lab and complete it and learn something, right? That's that's the full journey. And so that's why we picked that as a goal. So although we have probably 1.5 plus million users on the platform, we had never hit this this particular goal of having people go through and complete at least one lab and learn something using our learn by doing approach. And so coincidentally, last week or this week happened to be that time, and we just hit the 1 million mark on Monday. Big congratulations to the KodeKloud team, and thank you so much to the community for supporting us throughout this journey. Another big announcement is that we had 100 days of DevOps, which we had launched a few months back. We got a lot of traction for it. A lot of you have completed the tasks on our KodeKloud Engineer platform. And we're happy to announce that we now have 100 days of cloud. So this is a mix of AWS and Azure cloud tasks. So these are real tasks that you're going to do on our lab environments. And we're going to validate your work, and we give you your result instantly. So if you have seen KodeKloud Engineer, or learn by doing our job simulation platform, as we call it, this kind of simulates a real job environment. So you get one task every day, and you have to do a little bit of research, a little bit of studying, and complete it. Starts with very easy tasks in the beginning, and as you go through, it kind of gets harder. So 50 tasks for each. So if you're learning cloud, take up this opportunity. A couple of new courses that are coming out. So we have the Fundamentals of RAG course by Jeremy. We have the Open Telemetry Certified Associate, the OTEL course, again, a part of the Golden Kubestronaut track. We have the Data Engineering Fundamentals. So a couple of fundamentals course, Data Engineering and Database Fundamental course. So we're working on the Foundations track as well. This is mainly for those who are newly starting out the journey. And then we have Google Cloud Professional Data Engineer certification, and also the Certified Argo Project certification. And we also recently released the Kubestronaut Certified Associate certification. So the Kubestronaut, the Argo certification, and the Open Telemetry certification completed our Golden Kubestronaut track. So we now have all the courses needed to aim to complete your Golden Kubestronaut track. A few other courses we released, what we call as the Learn by Doing course. So these are just labs, hands-on courses that just have labs. These are mainly focused on the AI Ops track. So they're available on the platform. You can go and check it out. A couple of other courses that are going to come out very soon. So we have the AI-assisted Ansible course it's coming out soon. Some fundamentals of programming. We have a Managing Kubernetes with Rancher course that's coming out. We have the course on K agents, as well as the AWS DevOps professional certification course that's going to be coming out soon as well. All right, so a quick check-in on the progress. So by now, we should have completed the cohort 1 that started in the beginning of 2025, should have been completed. We have seen a lot of people become a Kubestronaut the past year. We have the cohort 2, which is still ongoing, but should aim to complete by the end of December. And then we have the cohort 3 and 4 that will continue into the new year. But starting new year, 2026, we'll be starting new cohorts. So watch out for those communications on our platform. You can, to sign up or check your progress, go to cohorts.kodekloud.com. You can see the leaderboard for each of these tracks, and you'll be able to see the number of enrollments and where you are in that particular leaderboard. So check it out when you get time. And of course, this is the Cyber Week sale. So it's the best time to get your certification vouchers, as they are at 65% off, the biggest deal of the year. So go to the link that we'll be sharing in the description below to get the discounts. All right, so I would like to bring our special guest in today. So we have Clyde Seepersad, who is the VP of at Linux Foundation. So he leads all of the education and the certification wing at the Linux Foundation. So all your questions about certifications, how tough they are and why is it made so tough and things like that. How is it hands-on? If you have any questions about the exams themselves or the future of education and training with Linux Foundation, do drop your questions in the chats. And at this stage, I'd like to bring in Clyde into the call. Hey, Clyde, welcome to our podcast. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy person, and I really appreciate joining us here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Whenever we gather folks together who are interested in all the new technologies, I'm super excited to just chat about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and how it helps folks, we think, build a really sustainable career.
Awesome. So I think maybe we can start with some introductions for those in the audience who are not, who don't know of you. Would you maybe share a little bit about your background and when you joined Linux Foundation? You've been with Linux Foundation for some time now. So maybe the earlier journey and how the Linux Foundation education wing, started in the first place.
Sure, yeah, I've been here over 12 years, which is like multiple lifetimes anymore. And I was not somebody who came from the open source community. I actually met an LF executive in Austin for what was supposed to be a 20-minute coffee. And we talked for 2.5 hours. And I went home and told my wife that, I met this guy for coffee today, and I think I'm going to quit my job and go do this. And you have to think back, right? This was 2013. What was clear then, and which has been true now for the last dozen years, is that infrastructure level technology was going to become collaboratively developed. And of course, that's what we've seen first with the cloud. Now we're starting to see it with AI. It's been true for the 5G stack. And in order for that to work, it has to be, two things have to be true. It has to be passionate developers getting together, writing great code, making it available through open source licenses. And it has to be adoption in the wild, right? So companies have to be involved. And Linux Foundation is really the only place on the planet that knows how to do that well, right? To be able to bring projects in, get them visible, attract more developers, bring companies in so they're actually utilizing it, and do that at scale across the world so that you can get things like Kubernetes. If those of you who've been around the game, when, right before Google donated Kubernetes into the Linux Foundation, everybody was expecting Mesos and Mesosphere to run away with it, with maybe Solomon Swarm was just about to come out from Docker. And the power of open, right? Google open sourced it, and within a year, nobody remembered what most Mesos was, right? It just became the dominant platform. So it's been a really fantastic journey here over the last dozen years, just watching the power of this idea of kind of getting together to solve the world's problems. in the technology space just blossom and go from sector to sector to sector. And it's ongoing, right? It just every day there's more cool stuff. In fact, there's a cool announcement next week that folks will see of just continued forward progress in this area.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very, very valuable insight. I think so. When you first joined the Linux Foundation, I think in 2013, is that around the time?
Yeah.
So was the education and the certification wing there at all at that time?
No, because back then there was still this kind of belief that open source was something you just needed to teach yourself, and you just get in, fire it up, get on some kind of RSS feed and figure it out yourself, which of course was always kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, nobody ever learned the core previous technologies that way, but there was just this ethos of like, roll up your sleeves. And one of the things LF had realized at that time was it was beginning to become an issue, right? Like we weren't making it welcoming enough for new people to discover, because it's one thing when you're in college and you have time and you can play around with stuff. Like once you have a job, like it's hard to make time to go learn this new stuff, right? And so I think the three key insights at that point were we have to do a better job making it easy for folks to get in. We have to make it available globally because the talent pool is global. And we have to be relentlessly focused on hands-on skills. So, I was sitting in the backstage, really nodding along when you were talking about 1 million labs, and congrats for that. I mean, it is the only thing that matters, right? Watching, slick videos on TikTok is entertaining, but doesn't forward your career at all, right? So, yes, you can watch the slick TikTok video, but then you got to go put your fingers on the keyboard and do the work. And so, I just want to congratulate the KodeKloud team on just the passionate commitment. That's something we've been passionately committed to from the get-go. And that's why for all the Kubestronauts and budding Kubestronauts, so many of the exams are hands-on, right? That's really what matters at the end of the day. And that's even more true now that we're sort of transitioning into this new age of AI-powered stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so the learn by doing has been core to our platform from the beginning. So the first couple of courses were not, but it was really the CKA that pushed us to think through, because I remember I think the first time we released a course on the certification, it didn't really have labs, and a lot of people learned the concepts, but they would go and attend the certification and fail and come back. And so we decided that we needed something that would really get people to spend as much time on labs as possible. So today, if you look at it, a lot of people go through, I mean, they watch the videos once, but then they just go through and do the labs multiple times, like 3-4 times, or people who do like 10 times as well. So gaining as much practice as possible, that then eventually makes it very easy to, of course, clear the exam, but also in the rest, the rest of the day at work, right, has a major impact to what they do.
Exactly. That's what employers care about, right? Not how many videos you looked at, it's can you do the work.
Yeah. Cool. So just going back to that origin story, so you came in and you built the education and the certification wing. And if I remember, before in the era prior to the Linux Foundation certifications, maybe the big players were like, I think the Red Hat certification. I think that's what a lot of people looked up to. The Cisco side of things, right? The CCNAs and CCNPs and E's, and there were like VMware certifications and things like that. I remember myself going after some of those in those earlier days. But then Linux Foundation came in and with all of the new certifications, which are like completely new, they're hands-on, which is very different from many of the other prior certifications. So what was the motivation behind like making these certifications hands-on? And you knew that it was going to be it's not easy, right, to pull this off. Like to create a certification based on multiple choice questions is pretty easy, straightforward. But like building a system around it and making sure it's up to date every quarter, which is which is a pain, really. Like, I mean, for us to keep the courses up to date every quarter, it gets outdated. we have a team on it who are like consistently just focusing on keeping our courses up to date. So I can't imagine the effort that would go into keeping the exams themselves up to date. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I always joke that I'm glad nobody told us how hard it was going to be when we started. You're thinking about we always wanted to make it globally available, right? From day one, it wasn't just that it was performance based; it was also delivered through the browser to anybody, anywhere in the world, which adds another layer of complexity. But the commitment was always to saying that skills are what matters, and the only way to demonstrate skills is to put your hands on the keyboard and start working. And we started the very first 2 certifications we launched were Linux. And so that made it a little bit easier because we had a ton of capability in-house on like, how would you go about testing people? And we were pretty ambitious with that first one because initially you could actually select which distro. And so you could do it in the Debian family or the Fedora family, or you could do it in SUSE, which looking back was overly ambitious, made it very, very difficult to have the same questions running. But it taught us a lot, right? And so we've learned a lot about how to build these environments so that they are stable, so that they're highly replicable. The trickiest thing with performance-based exams is figuring out how to set these things up so that, even though people might take 100 different paths to solving the issue, you can still give people credit, right? So it's not like, there's only one answer, right? So really being able to set it up so that you can check the end state of the machine. And it's always fascinating to me to watch some of the scoring outputs as to unusual and novel ways that people go about solving the questions. And our approach is, look, no harm, no foul, right? If you can do the work and you can do it in a way that is secure and well documented, the beauty of a lot of these technologies is there are generally multiple ways to get stuff done. Yeah. And so I think that was a bit that was trickiest was figuring out how to accommodate this broad range. And frankly, once in a while, people appeal the exam results and we go back and we think, oh my gosh, they've solved this in this really interesting way that we just hadn't captured yet, right? And so not only do we have to update, there's mercifully now there are 3 Kubernetes releases a year. It used to be 4. So there's a treadmill there. Every 4 months we're in there. But then we're also actively trying to collect feedback from customers about, hey, I should have gotten credit. Well, let's go look at it and figure out, can they get credit? Or, hey, why is this tool not available in the solution space, right? And so it is, there's basically a whole team that does nothing but keep these exams up to date, which, I'm sure as a lab provider, you understand that challenge, right? But, we're pretty sold on the idea that that's what really matters, right? And so we have to make it available. And yes, it's hard, but, for the candidates, it's challenging. But, what I tell people is when we give you that badge, it says you are CKA, CKS, CKD, Kubestronaut. We want that to be a level of proof where if your manager was standing over your shoulder watching you do the work, that it's the same type of experience, right? So it's observation pressure, it's time pressure, because ultimately the goal here is to make it easier for people to launch successful careers. And that hands-on skills evaluated under pressure is sort of the ultimate test of, are you able to go out and do this work?
Yeah. No, spot on. So you mentioned like the kind of the some of the challenges, or of course, the challenges with keeping it up to date, but also the interesting ways that people solve problems, which is also very very interesting, because we often get asked a lot of questions about, like, is it okay to do this in the exam environment, or is it okay to do that, or should I solve it this way, should I solve it that way? And a lot of our students like have come up with these aliases and shortcuts and things like that they would configure in the earlier phase of their exam. And there's like all these tips and tricks that people share, which is, I believe, all very valid to what they do on their day-to-day work, right? And so they're just going beyond like what they're supposed to do in the exam environment, and finding ways to make themselves really efficient, which I feel is like is also another unseen advantage of these exams. So what kind of so over the past decade or so, you said you started with Linux, but like how has the trend evolved over the past decade, and like what do you see has changed the past, and what do you see is changing right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the trajectory, we started with Linux, and the next second big batch we did was the Kubernetes exams. What we try to do is really look at what is the practice in the industry, right? What are the tools that people are expecting to have when they get into the world of work, whether that's, coming from a university career, whether that's with people switching careers kind of coming in. And what we're seeing now is it used to be the case, you talked about like CCNA and others, that you could pick a certification and basically build a career around it. And, I'm a database person, I'm a networking person. And, the thing that's been increasingly true, and the sort of new kind of AI stuff has just accelerated it, is these are not destinations, these are stepping stones, right? And so you have to keep learning, you have to keep building. So, but at the same time, you also have to understand the fundamentals, right? Like in the middle of taking, CKS, fundamentally, you're also having to understand the Linux command line, because every time you drop down there, that's the command line that's running, and that's true, in any sort of cloud environment. And so, we keep adding things. The newest exam we have is the platform engineer, which is, I would argue, probably the most challenging exam we've ever created because of the breadth of tooling, which, some people come in and say, oh, this is unrealistic, there's so much breadth. And our review is this is what working looks like now, right? Is you don't get to be, I'm a software developer and I just write code, or I'm a network engineer and I just configure services. All of us have to get breadth. And so that's part of what we just keep trying to do, is to say, okay, how do we create exams that reflect the sort of breadth that employers want to see in practice, right? We used to have CKA, CKD, we added CKS because security clearly became important and we need to do that. And then we launched the Kubestronaut program to say, look, you know what? It's important to know the whole spectrum, right? And it's not that because every single day you're using, Helm or Fluentd, but when your work challenges get to where you need to use it, you need to know what that tool is, so that you could go say, okay, you know what? I need more telemetry, I need more observability, I need more logging. And I think that's really the challenge, right? Is there's a sense in which people like the certainty of knowing, well, I studied and I got this credential and now I'm good. I can go 10 years on it. And I think the reality is we have to all keep learning. We have to keep adding new skills. We have to keep adding and validating those skills. Not necessarily always. So one of the things we've done over the last couple of years is add more of what we call skill creds, which are not the full bore certification, 2 hours live human proctor. It's the smaller kind of 40, 45 minutes. So that people can, and it's light proctored, it's AI proctored, it's not, it's a different bar. But the idea is you need to convince yourself that you know how to do it. So not everything needs a full certification. We try to reserve those for the things that employers really care about. But the idea that we all have to continuously learn, I think, is the biggest thing that is you have to make your peace with, right? It's just like you have to expect every day you're going to get up and try to teach yourself something new. And I think performance-based exams set you up for success, right? Because it pushes you to just constantly try, how do I do this? How do I learn other different ways to do this? One of the things we always tell people is, the goal is not for you to, you can ask a bunch of people who've taken the exam, get a sense of what's on the exam. And even though we're always updating it, you can teach yourself just very narrowly the things around the exam and maybe get your way to passing. All you did is fool yourself, right? Okay, fine, you managed, maybe on that one thing, you managed to get a passing score on the exam, but you didn't try to master the skills. And the point is not just to get the credential. The point is to master the skills, because that's what is going to set you up for career success, right? And so the temptation is strong to study narrow and say, okay, well, I'm going to just do these things because I know that these are the things that are currently on the exam. Don't sell yourself short. Like, if you're going to put the effort in to try to pass the exam, put the effort in to learn the material, right? Yeah. And that is where the labs really come in, and the idea that you should. If you're trying to solve a solution and then you find an interesting problem that's sort of on the side, go work the problem. Go figure out what that thing is, because that's what's going to happen when you're out there in the wild, right? Is unexpected things are going to come up. And so this idea of pushing yourself to discover, not limiting yourself to what was in the material or what the lab instructions were, and sort of following your intuition, that's what's going to make you successful. And that's what we try to encourage people. And so when I see, platforms like KodeKloud that are really pushing people to hands-on, applaud, kudos. That is really what matters.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I think the idea that you mentioned about just preparing just for the exam and just trying to clear that part alone, I think that's I can relate to that a lot, because a lot of students come and ask me, like, what do I need to do just to learn enough to just pass the exam, right? And I often end up trying to convince them otherwise of not aiming for just clearing the exam. I mean, that's just kind of like a destination, right? Like it's really the journey of learning and getting the hands on keyboard and doing as much practice as you can. That's the most important part. So yeah, totally. I think a question that I had along those lines is just really the philosophy of certification, because I mean, a lot of students ask, like, why even get certified in the first place, right? There's this debate about certification versus hands-on experience or job experience. Like, is it important to just to get job experience, or is it important to get certification? And there's always this constant debate between the two. Like, what are your thoughts about that, and maybe the impact of certification as you see in from an employer perspective too? What do you hear from your end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reasonable question for people to ask. What I would remind folks of is that in 2019, so a year and a half after Google open sourced Kubernetes, there were people on LinkedIn claiming to have 5 years of experience running it. It's just absurd, right? I mean, with the pace at which technology is deploying is so rapid that I mean, who among us has 5, even 3 years of experience with agentic AI? You can't get it because the stuff comes at you too fast, right? And so, look, if you have the experience, that's great, but that is like 1% of the demand for this talent is people who have the opportunity to get in early and work on it. And so, as a tech professional, you have to go find ways to build experience, because it's a catch-22, right? The company won't give you the opportunity to work on it unless you show that you have some facility with doing it. And so if you go do these independent paths of study, explore it, put your hands on the keyboard, do the work, you're then more likely to stand out. And we're in this environment of high pace, high change, continuous adaptability. And in that case, you have to go practice the stuff kind of off on your own to build the skills. I mean, it could be at your company in their learning environment as well, right? But what the certification is trying to do, especially for the hands-on certification, it's trying to replicate the ability of you to get experience on something that your company hasn't even deployed yet. And so that really, to us, is why it's become so important. Is you don't need to go back and get a master's degree in how to do observability and monitoring, right? It's not that kind of work, and it's smaller, it's more compact. Yeah. And so certifications for us have become a way to demonstrate to employers that you've taken the initiative to keep up with the next wave and the next wave and the next wave of technology. Yeah. Because it's just not realistic to expect people to build up 3-4 years of experience of the stuff when it's only been in the wild for 18 months.
Yeah. Interesting you mentioned that, because there's a similar question also around certification versus degrees, right? Because that's also been a debate. Do I get a master's degree? Would you recommend that, or getting a certification, tech certification? And there's viewpoints from both sides that there's. I think what I hear more often these days is maybe a tech certification is more valuable. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's apples and oranges, right? The benefits you get from a university education are broad and wide ranging, right? And so it's a lot of soft skills and interacting with people and dealing with conflict and really honing your critical thinking skills. Many of those things are, if actually increasingly important in an AI driven world where the issue isn't the knowledge is kind of there and it's sucked into these models. And so especially at a young formative age, right? I think there's a lot of value in the types of things that you learn that aren't necessary. It's funny to say, but it's not really about the curriculum, right? It's about the experience and putting yourself in that environment to learn and push yourself. And it's very different from what a certification does, which is to test you on the skills, right, on the conceptual knowledge to get familiar with it, right? And so, we get similar questions, for instance, on CKA, and people saying, well, with all the automation, like, what's the point of learning Kubernetes? Like, it's all trivially automatable. And, that's true till the system breaks down, and then you have to go fix it. And so, if you don't know how the machine works, you're not ready. It's like, pilots today spend less than 10% of the time actually flying the plane. We're not saying let's all go be pilots. You have to learn it. And so I think I don't think it's all, I think it may be and I think it's also a function of what certifications have done is they've created an entry path into a tech career for people who maybe didn't have the resources to be able to go down the traditional university route, to take the 4 years off without, steady income. And so, I think there's people for whom it opened up opportunities that wouldn't have been there if you had to go through the gate of taking a degree. But there's a lot of benefits from, I would say, especially an undergraduate education, and to some extent, in your field in the master's area to really learn the context. But there are different elements, right? What the gains you make are different. And the combination that's going to be critical going forward is the critical thinking skills, because that's what we don't have AGI yet. We have narrow AI and a facility with the skills, right? Just like we were all in schools and they said you can't bring your calculator because you kind of have, we know you're not going to do the math on your, on paper for the most part, but you have to understand the concepts, right? And this is different, right? You have to spend the time, learn the foundational stuff. And if you look at the stack, nothing is more foundational than Linux as the OS, Kubernetes as the orchestration layer. Ben Lorica, who's an influential analyst in the space, has a new acronym which I love. It's called the PARK stack, PARK, which is PyTorch for training, AI models, Rave, and Kubernetes. And then I would argue it should be PARK-L because underneath Kubernetes is also Linux, right? And so the foundational technologies are important to learn. I am disappointed that more degree programs don't include that in the curriculum, or to make sure people get exposed to it. But I understand why, because of accreditation and all that. But ideally, if you get a chance to do both, that's what I would encourage folks to do, because you develop different aspects of yourself.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. I think the foundations maybe are more important now than ever, because I guess a lot of things that you would otherwise get stuck with, like after learning the foundations and you're trying and building things, and then you get stuck with these like weird errors and things like that where you don't have assistance. That's where AI is playing a major role right now in just helping you just breeze through all of those, right? Like you have a big issue, you ask a terminal AI agent or a coding agent to look into it, and it can just help you fix that pretty quickly. But I think the foundations of again solving problems, like what problems to solve in the first place, how to solution solving a particular problem, how to having good taste in terms of building the right user experiences, creating the right experience for users. I think those things are more important than ever now that a lot of the kind of the mundane tasks of developing or building itself is can be automated. But I guess having the going back and learning the foundations, having strong foundations can help drive these AI agents into building whatever you want to. So I think all those companies who have strong foundations built already with like good engineering teams with the relevant skills, and just strong infrastructure itself, like your code base. So one of the things I say often is if your development environments are set up in such a way that you have the linting set up, and you have the pre-commit hooks, and you have the tests and automations and the pipelines and everything set up in such a way that it does not let like errors or problems go into production, then it's very easy to integrate AI agents into, it's as easy as assigning a task, creating an issue and assigning an AI agent. Even if the agent does something wrong, breaks stuff, it can't go to production. So you can, confidently engage AI agents. And a lot of times the newer models are doing a really good job at fixing issues, right? Even faster than humans. But since you have that infrastructure, the base built out, you can confidently involve AI agents. So yeah, with you there in terms of the importance of having strong foundations.
Yeah, the analogy I like to tell people is, if I put a cushion on the driver's seat, my 9-year-old would probably think they could drive a car, right? Press the accelerator pedal. Probably not a good idea. They might go down the street and have no problem. Eventually, they're going to run into somebody, right? Because there's all this other implicit knowledge around it, right? And so you can get away with, this is a danger of some of this AI tooling, right? Is you can get away with a lot without knowing. But eventually your luck will run out, right? If you don't know what you're doing, eventually your luck will run out, and you're going to be very, very exposed.
Yeah. So talking about AI, like any plans for Linux Foundation certifications or education in the AI space? Like what are we working on in terms of bringing an AI track or something like that?
Yeah, we are actively trying to figure that out. It's always difficult in the early stages because the proliferation of tools, right? I mean, you were talking about 100 days of DevOps, and people keep asking us to build a DevOps exam. And I said, well, we only build performance-based stuff. There are approximately 6 trillion combinations of DevOps pipeline tooling that you could use. Which one do you want us to pick, right? Because somebody wants Ansible and somebody else wants Terraform. So I think we try to be realistic about saying, hey, what do it was very challenging for us, even with this new platform engineering exam, to have to make some trade-offs about what tools to put in. I think the first step for us is we're actively trying to figure out how do we add more AI toolings into the existing exam environments to better reflect the fact that this is what people do today. And so we're going to be doing some of that coming out here next year. And then as we, I think if this concept around POC stack kind of takes hold and people start, if those of us who are old enough to remember when the LAMP stack came out in the early 90s, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, that's how I should build my cloud, right? Is this constellation of open source technologies, Linux, Apache. I think we're starting early days to see a little bit of consolidation. We need to see a little bit more before you could put something together that's performance-based. But every morning we ask ourselves that question, okay, can we put something together that's meaningful? And what would it look like? It's getting closer, still not quite there in terms of maturity. But we do, of course, encourage people to go figure out, right? Like how, how do VLLM and Ray complement each other? Because one reduces the, inference draw on the front end, and the other one spreads the loads across a lot of infrastructure, which, by the way, includes Kubernetes infrastructure, not just GPU infrastructure, right? Because not everything has to go to a GPU, right? Which is one of the things I think we're all learning. So we keep asking ourselves, is it time? I think so far the answer has been it's not quite time. There's too much flux out there. We're starting to see a little bit of consolidation, and as fast as we can get clarity on what's a good place to sort of plant the flag, that is absolutely something we're going to be doing, because that's just part of the messaging we were talking about earlier, right? Which is we all have to just keep adding pieces on, and getting an understanding of kind of what these technologies do, so that when the time comes, we're better positioned to lean into it.
So I think we're also trying to, in the same boat of trying to figure out like what is the right AI track or AI learning path, because things keep changing so fast. Like there was the LangChain and LangGraph frameworks, and now there's the Microsoft agent framework and the Google ADKs and things like that. And it keeps shifting so so fast that like the courses are needing to be updated more often. So
Right.
I,
You know what? You remember prompt engineering had like 6
yeah,
months in in the limelight. I don't know.
yeah,
That was not even 2 years ago, right? I mean, it's just
yeah,
crazy how the
yeah,
pace of it. But this is part of why, and I know I'm a broken record. I keep talking about performance and hands-on.
yeah,
Play with stuff, right? If you look at the sort of overall inference stack, right? There's some basic compute stuff. There's still stuff running in what I would call traditional CPU Kubernetes infrastructure. Make sure you understand those fundamentals because they're not going anywhere.
yeah,
Go play with some of the stuff in the GPU space, right? If you're not experimenting with CUDA, you should stop what you're doing and go make sure you're experimenting with a little bit with CUDA and how you think about GPU stacks. Play a little bit with VLLM, play a little bit with Ray, thinking about how you scale workloads across kind of the different types of environments. Um, you know, Make sure you do enough PyTorch to be dangerous and enough Python for sure. If you haven't,
yeah,
that this will become kind of de facto language. Learn a little bit about how the model. If you think about the scope, right? There's the infrastructure piece, which is a lot of Kubernetes, Linux, kind of orchestration type stuff.
yeah,
There's how do I build a model, right? So how do I put stuff in PyTorch? Same thing. Eerily similar, parallel to what happened with
yeah,
Kubernetes.
yeah,
Is for a while all people knew was TensorFlow, and then Meta open source PyTorch, and then all of a sudden it's become the
yeah,
dominant model for how you train. So think about the data layer and data security. Think about how you train, which is kind of PyTorch as the critical thing there. Think about the inference level in VLLM and how you scale that. Make sure you understand the stack. Like, what's the architecture of the stack? What are the different levels? So that you at least conceptually can kind of have a mental model of how it all hangs together. And obviously there's a lot of agentic stuff happening, which by the way also requires a massive amount of interaction with existing systems, right? And so everybody wants to, well, teach me about agentic AI. Well, okay, do you know how to create a secure API endpoint on your legacy system that's somewhere in a basement on a mainframe? Because otherwise the agent can't get to it, right? And so there's no magic pixie dust to take all your legacy infrastructure and make it available to these agentic models. Like, somebody has to do that work, and that somebody is probably you, right? And so experimenting, making sure you understand kind of all the different layers, that's the best we all can do, right? It's just moving so fast, right? You gotta, it's like learning how to read, right? You gotta learn how to read, like, what these different elements are. And then as it starts to gel and starts to, form into patterns, then great. Then you can dig in and scale up that way. But, if you're not playing with these different areas, you're not setting yourself up for success.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you kind of keep yourselves up to date. I know you must be having a busy day, but how do you find yourself? How do you find time for yourself to stay up to date with these technologies? You said you were originally not from an open source background, but maybe like how does that work? Like, how did you learn the space after you got in? Keep yourselves up to date the past decade?
Well, the very first thing I did was take my ThinkPad, wipe it, and put Mint on there, because somebody had told me that Mint was the most Windows-like
Okay.
transition into Linux. And I'm actually coming to you from a Ubuntu machine now. And so part of it is just put yourself in the environment, right? And then you're forced to learn it. Part of it is, I get I have a sort of morning news feed that I go through to try to keep an eye on kind of what's happening. You have an unfair advantage if you work at the LF, because you get to see a lot of the projects that are bubbling that haven't yet been announced, and so you get to go dive in. But frankly, one of the things I've been doing recently is I use the foundational models to just say, explain it to me. And so just last week, I was like, okay, explain LoRa to me in 8th grade language, because I can't go read 6 hours worth of stuff and listen to 5 podcasts. So I'm like, hey, in 300 words, explain LoRa to me. They're incredibly good at this stuff, right? And then at least you start with a conceptual understanding, and then you can become a gateway, because it is a little challenging, there's all this stuff coming at you, and you can't just go boil the ocean and try to read up everything, right? But the tools are great. The foundational models are great for like helping you at least start with a basic level understanding, and then you can kind of go deeper. So definitely that is I encourage everybody, like, every time you see a new phrase or acronym, go ask a foundational model to explain it like a 5-year-old, so that you at least can like begin to grok what it is and fit it into your mental model. I try to do some hands-on playing. I don't have nearly as much time to teach myself the actual skills that as I would like. But at least try to make sure I understand conceptually what all the pieces are, how they fit together, and try to form a worldview on how it all fits together, right? I think a lot of that, and I think even for the folks on this call, right, what industry you're in, what type of work you're in. Pull up away a little bit from the tools and think about, okay, how would this work? Like, what would we accomplish that's different by using these tools? Because in the end, it's not about the tools. It's about what are we trying to achieve as an organization, and how do these things fit, and what could get in our way, right? This is the critical thinking piece, right? Everybody's gone headlong, wanting to do AI stuff. And when you ask them about privacy, when you ask them about security, when you ask them about proprietary data and which things you shouldn't be dumping into Grok for the whole world to consume, they look kind of puzzled, like, oh, I don't have time to think about that. My boss wants me to have an AI agent. Well, okay, but if you don't think about it, again, if you're not thinking about, you dump all your proprietary research into a publicly available foundational model, you have to be thinking holistically. And it's hard to do because everybody wants, it's the hot thing. Everybody wants to see, like, why don't we already have full agentic workflows? You guys in the tech team are dinosaurs, right? It's like, move faster. But speed isn't the only thing.
Yeah. So how are you thinking AI's impact on certifications? Is that something your team has thought about? Is it going to change in any way in the future? Like, is it going to I don't know, maybe will you allow AI within the certification environments, or?
Yeah, we're working on that, and what's the right way to allow it in. I think, when I talk to employers, they are very, very concerned that when they bring on or upskill team members, that the people are actually learning the skills and they're not using AI as a crutch. Right? AI, it's very tempting to use AI as a crutch to like cover up the holes in your knowledge, instead of using it as a slingshot to like dramatically increase your productivity. And for us, that's what hands-on certifications do, is it gives you the confidence, but it also gives your employer the confidence that you actually know the stuff and you can do it. And therefore, you're in a good position to use these tools to dramatically increase your productivity and to expand the footprint of what you're able to do. I think that is the big worry. When I talk to organizations, they want to make sure their folks are properly upskilled, that they actually understand what's happening with the technologies, that they're able to use it, to not use it when it doesn't make sense. They're able to put appropriate boundaries around it. And, until we get to the Star Trek mind reading where you can really tell what somebody knows, certification exams are a great way to demonstrate that you actually have taken the time to learn it at the fundamental level, not just, typing into ChatGPT in parallel while you're on. There's all this stuff about faking interviews. The employers want confidence, right? They want confidence that you're able to do it. They're very wary about people's ability to use AI to fake it. And certifications, I think, have become more important because it's LF is standing behind you saying, we believe Mumshad actually knows how to do this, right? And so that, I think, is, if anything, increasingly important to demonstrate, especially because what we talked about earlier, which is the expectations is that we all have a broader range of skills, right? We spent 50 years of like increasing specialization, right? I'm a front-end developer for web apps, and now we're having to sort of pull up and go broad. And so that validation component, I think, is going to be important so that people have confidence that you're not just using AI as a crutch.
No, totally agree. Maybe a line about the future of Linux Foundation's education. What's your long-term vision?
Well, I think we're really focusing on, if I pull back, there is no shortage of content on the internet, right? People put stuff out. Some of it's AI slop, some of it's good. If you wanted to go, learn about something, you don't necessarily have to come through the LF or even like a KodeKloud. You can probably do it. I think the two pieces where we're very focused on are what are the skills people need, and can we do certifications and skill credit exams to sort of validate those skills? And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've been aggressively building out a catalog of micro-learning. And so 5-minute, 10-minute things explaining, like, what is this new technology that you've never even heard of? And why should you, what is it and why should you care? Because there are two challenges I think of if you're a technologist. One is, can I build up some experience using these things, which is the certification piece we've been talking about. And then the second is, there's so much stuff. Like, how do I keep track of like all the new things that are coming out so that I can identify which things I should actually even care about to go build the skills on? And so those are the two areas we're super focused on, right? Is we do have a lot of kind of early access to how technology is moving and what new things are heating up. And so we're trying to do a lot of micro learning around making that visible and available to people in a way that is short form, right? 5-minute, 10-minute, like just, it's a mirror image of what we spent all this time talking about, performance-based, hands-on. This is just upstream of that is the question of what is it and why do I care? Right. And so I think we're doing a lot of trying to make visible to people what is it and why should you care? Because what you're caring about today is going to start being in production in 12 months. Yeah. And then staying relentlessly focused on what are the most important skills that are going to be important for a tech career, and trying to make sure we keep that portfolio fresh. And so we're taking this kind of two-pronged approach to like the upstream discovery stuff to make you aware of it. Not all of which we will build content on. Some of it you're on your own. Go figure it out. That's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to get to. And then this very hands-on focus on the most critical skills.
Yeah.
So we're not, we're not trying to build a library of 100,000 courses. We don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the funding. We're trying to be very, very focused on how can we best add value to people's career. And that's kind of our take, is we can help them see around the corner for like what might be coming next on tech. And then we can help them ensure that they can validate the core skill sets that employers are looking for.
Yeah, neither do we. We don't have the funding or desire to create 100,000 courses. But one thing we've been focusing on past couple of years is really fewer, better courses. That's been our motto, like finding out exactly what our audience wants and then creating like the best course on that topic. And that's what we've been trying to do. So one last question. One last question. So which LF certification do you personally think everyone should take, considering the changes that are happening in the industry right now? Maybe like your top pick.
I would argue it's probably, people think it's the least sexy exam we offer, but it's the LFCS, the Linux admin exam.
Yeah.
Because so much goes through the command line, right? Like if you don't know how to run top to see why your infrastructure is choking, like you're going to be at such a disadvantage, right? And so I always tell people, like, all they want to talk to me about is RAG and AI and agentic. And I keep saying, I know you're going to be very disappointed when I tell you where you should start, but it's going to be so foundational, right? To just understand that core level of how the systems run. And I think that's I think it's the 1-2 punch, right? Linux Kubernetes is really the springboard for so much of compute, and people gloss over it, right? And I think that's a mistake. It is the foundation upon which computing is built. You should set a strong foundation, and it doesn't feel, like the sexy thing to be working on, but it's incredibly important.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So let's take some questions. the community. If you have any questions, please do drop it. But let me see if there's something. I think this one is for us. So there's the CNPE certification that's coming out, which is a practical one. It's not out yet, right?
It just launched last week, so it is. Yeah, GA date was our last Thursday, I think.
Okay.
So it's just
So the
now.
CNPA and then the CNPE following that.
Correct. The associate exam, which is a knowledge-based traditional old school exam,
Yeah.
and the CNPE is a hands-on bear of an exam that is. I think it's going to become one of our most important exams because of the breadth, right? And then it's really trying to make sure people understand the breadth of what production looks like.
Yeah. And I guess this is also probably these two tracks, the CNPA, the platform engineering it's also one of the ones that are getting a lot of traction recently. Is that right?
Yeah, because it's just back to analogy we were talking about earlier, that the first step is understanding what it is and why you should care, and that's more of a knowledge-based thing, which lends itself well to sort of a traditional multiple choice exam. And then if the answer is I do care and I need to learn, now you're talking about performance-based, right? And so you know it's this idea of sort of a 1-2 step. I see a question there about is there a plan to add new mandatory certifications for Kubestronauts? We're not aiming to try to make it big. It's already a very ambitious spectrum of stuff. But we do also try to evaluate every new one to say, okay, does this belong as part of that? So far, we've said that we're thinking we don't, at least not in the immediate future, we're not going to add CNPE to the Kubestronaut program because it is pretty big, and we want to see what the reaction is. But we do evaluate it all the time, right? And say, hey, look, is this the right breadth of skills that we're asking people to give themselves familiarity with?
Yeah. The Kubernetes networking certification that's going to come up, that is going to be part of it, right? It should be.
We're working on that. Networking is another area that was sort of had become kind of not so sexy, right? It was like a wave of everybody wanted to do networking stuff. And then it sort of fell out of favor, but it's really become it's back in vogue in part because there's implications for how agents work to be able to connect stuff together. So we are we'd like to have gotten to that one sooner. CNPE was a massive undertaking to get done. So we got that out, and then as we get into next year, we're going to start working on the networking piece. The goal is to get it out next year. I think realistically, probably the second half of next year, just because it's also very challenging. But I mean, this is the challenge we're all facing, right? There's a lot of stuff that each of us needs to learn and be able to do. And one of the things we always keep an eye on. I know you talked at the top about the fact that we have our big Cyber Monday Probo on this week. LF does not do country-based pricing, where we're like, okay, you're in the US, so you're going to pay this much, and then you're in India, so it's going to be this much. What we do instead is we do these promotional pricing events, right? Because you could be a low-income person in Alabama, you could be a high-income person in Bangalore. The price is the price for companies. Companies have money; they should pay. That helps fund so much of the work we do at the LF. But we do have these events where we try to make it much more affordable. Obviously, in the context of some of the developing countries, it's still a lot. Even at 50-60% off, it's still a lot, but it does cost a lot to run these environments. But we do try to keep them accessible. We just, a couple of nights ago, made UPI available as a payment option. I think for the folks in India, that should help a lot in terms of just ease. But we are very focused on the market for this talent is global, and frankly, most of the young people being born now are not being born in the US or Europe. They're being born in Asia, they're being born in Africa. And so that's where we have to make sure that we're providing these opportunities is in the places where the young people are coming out.
I mean, first of all, thank you so much for the partnership that we have with between KodeKloud and the Next Foundation. One of our core mottos have always been to make education and certifications, accessible and affordable in different parts of the world. So, one of the initiatives that we have towards making it accessible in the India and other regions is I think that's a huge initiative, and thank you so much for partnering with us along those efforts.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys are fighting a good fight. You're focused on skills, and so we're always looking to partner with organizations to further the mission.
All right, I know we are a bit over time, but I think that's I think those are the questions. Thank you so much for your time, Clyde. Really appreciate taking time out during a busy day.
And, no worries, man. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, and until next time. Goodbye. Right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Bye-bye.